really happy about this episode, and I'm looking forward to hear what you have to say about this.
Jack Kirby. Enough said? I think not. On April 2nd, 1917, President Woodrow Wilson asked the U.S. Congress for a declaration of war on Germany. That was an important year in regards to the First World War. But what the world didn't know at the time is almost half a year later, on August 28th, 1917, a child named Jacob Kurtzberg would be born, who would forever change the landscape of comic books, cartoon strips, and even later, 14 years after his death on February 6, 1994, would change the silver screen and how the world at large views heroes and superheroes. So we here at the Weigh-In invite you on a journey to celebrate the life of a modern-day Caesar, a titan of innovative illustration, a Shakespeare of storyboards and panels, a genius who is regarded as having an unmatched skill with his pencil. Ladies and gentlemen, today's veneration is for the legend, Mr. Jack Kirby.
Holy cow! What are you, like? You a spokesman for the UN? That was amazing.
Had to give it up for Jack, man.
You told me you had something special you were writing, and I'm telling you right now, Jack is saluting you. Like
I wanted to impress you. I wanted to do good for Jack.
You know, when you brought up the idea of us doing some extensive episodes based on this, because obviously, folks, we're not going to knock this out in one episode or even 2 episodes. Jack's life is so strong, so rich with creativity. It's just amazing what he did during his lifetime. Just a Gatling gun of creative ideas. Just
absolutely.
Running 100 miles an hour. You know, just I had a T-shirt once that said, "Okay."
Let me cross over real fast. So, I want to bring this up before we really get started in on Jack.
Sorry if I jumped ahead there.
No, not at all, not at all. You were perfect. There's a declamatory atmosphere when you bring up Jack Kirby and Stan Lee.
Sure is.
This will not be a Stan bashing episode. You know, rest in peace Stan Lee. Rest in peace Jack Kirby. We're just here to, celebrate Jack Kirby and really let the public know his contributions, to the comic book world, the cartoon world, and everything else. But this is not a Stan bashing session. I've seen at other places. We don't do that here.
Well, that's a really good point, because it's been done enough. I think a lot of people hear it. They know what's going on. But it's good to let the facts just play themselves out in an entertaining way. You attach the facts any way you think they fit. We're not going to actually make it seem as if we're trying to force you to believe what you don't want to believe. But, all along from the get-go, after Mr. Kirby died in 1994, there was this design for a corporation to eventually buy a company. They did. They bought Marvel. Obviously, we're talking about Disney.
Yeah.
And any company that owns a property that's worth a lot of money, you can't blame them for what they do. And it wasn't like they were necessarily trying to recorrect history, but it just was going their way. Mr. Kirby had already been passed, but Stan Lee was still alive, and he just left us like this year.
Yeah.
And so they had an opportunity to have an icon or a spokesman or somebody who was larger than life, like Stan was. So I'm happy how it worked. It did make the brand work. It keeps comics around forever. But it was a combination of things that made everything became what it was, and that's what some of the things are. Yes, and this is what we're going to try to bring out during this particular series of things. Excuse me there. Jack goes back to the late 30s and 1940s when he was a young boy in New York City. And, he grew up in the tough Jewish tenements. He had a scrap for every...
Because he was Jewish born.
Jewish boy.
He changed his name.
They were in the slums.
He's
Jacob Kurtzberg.
Which
is a cool name, too,
Yeah, absolutely.
Like we had Harvey Kurtzman, who created Mad Magazine.
Okay.
He had a great name, too. Another Jewish creator of comics. Predominantly Jewish people were the people who did create comics from the 30s on. It's all out of New York City and towns like Cleveland and whatnot. And that's where it comes from.
In Lower East Side Manhattan, where Jack came from.
Exactly. But the thing about Jack was, even when he was a young boy, he met some friends that helped him become important, like Stan would in his later life. One of the ones that really stands out in the early days is Joe Simon, which was his cohort in crime, so to speak.
Yeah, Joe started at Fox, right?
Fox Comics, correct. And he eventually met Jack. Jack did some work for Fox too, some freelance work, but that wasn't going to be one of the companies where he would spend most of his time. He eventually found his way, like with him and Joe, they found their way over to Timely Comics, which is obviously known as Marvel Comics today.
It became Marvel,
But Timely was a neat word in its day, because they were comics that were on the game. They were on their grip, They were on the ball.
Yeah, that's awesome. Timely. And what major character that is huge today that they both helped create.
Okay, well, for those of you who don't know, I won't say the name, but hopefully most of you will figure it out. There's a great character called Steve Rogers. He's a blonde-haired guy. He's the epitome of a true American.
Yeah, he's a peak human specimen.
Yep. They gave him the super serum.
The super soldier serum.
Probably the best character, I would say, in all the Marvel films, of single-handedly.
Definitely the most heroic.
Most heroic. Robert Downey's right behind there because he's good too. But Cap really is the epitome.
Captain America.
Captain America.
Jack Kirby.
And look, I mean, there's other characters that got like stars and stripes on their suits, and they're running around. You know,
nobody's like Cap though.
No, and nobody's called America with the captain in front.
Yeah,
think about that.
And it's like, how do you sell that overseas?
You don't. Hitler hated it.
Yo, but even if you think right now, even in modern day times, 2019, how do you sell that overseas? But he's such a brand that stands for everybody. Like, he stands for America, but everybody embraces him.
Well, he stands for freedom, and America is supposed to stand for freedom, the way I see it and the way you see it. Maybe there's a few problems with it happening in our world today, but that's okay. I mean, we get around. There's been ups and downs and bumps and shit along the way, but Captain America, what a great name.
What a phenomenal character to create.
How about this fact? Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Not only did he create Captain America, he also created Iron Man, Hulk, Thor, Black Panther.
T'Challa.
Fantastic Four.
Yep.
Galactus.
It's clobbering time.
Dr. Doom. The Avengers. His list goes on.
On and on. The X-Men.
The X-Men.
He had a say in Daredevil. He drew the first Spider-Man cover.
The major characters that you love right now.
And we're not talking about writing. We're talking about the concepts and the characters that we're speaking of.
Which is huge. Which is what you love.
Exactly.
Was created by Mr. Jack Kirby. That's insane. Our first 10-year run to get us here, which you could say that you could definitely say that the Marvel Cinematic Universe has a legacy left with the DC Extended Universe, because they wouldn't have even had the idea if they didn't watch the template from Marvel.
Oh, sure.
So Jack legacy, it stretches that long into today.
Yeah, because I mean, here we are. Next year,
I got chills right now.
2020. Me too, man. I get the goose flesh, as they call it, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes they call it goosebumps. In the old days, they called it goose flesh, which sounded creepier. Think about this. In 2021 or 2020, possibly, we're going to get... Now, remember, he's died in 94.
Yeah.
Jack's been dead in 94, right? Okay, we're going to get another creation in the Marvel Universe that's going to be brought to the big screen, which is the Eternals and the Celestials. Have you ever seen what the Celestials are, folks? Look it up if you get a chance. It's the most stunning...
grandiose
thing that
characters.
And this is his post-return after he left DC. This is back to Marvel for the last time.
Yeah.
From 94 to about 98, I think it is. Correct. Sorry if I'm incorrect on the date there. But it's the last great thing he threw out with that Gatling gun of ideas he did.
Yeah, 94 maybe.
And Stan said on this one, which was interesting, I know you want to make more money for every concept that you do. So you want to write it, you want to draw it, you want to get a more affordable inker. You get somebody that's got a better letterer, it's cheaper. You try to keep the budget down. It's like the budget on a football team or something. So they tell him, you do what you want to do. And that we'll do is, I'm not going to step in, so I'm not going to take a writing credit. I'm not going to take a writing paycheck. This is your project, Jack. And it came out. It was fantastic. And lo and behold, they're going to make a movie out of it. Now, look, it does fall apart near the end of the series.
And this is like the highlight, too, of what Jack did.
It crosses into the Thor world, which is really important, too. And sadly, you know, the Thor, I shouldn't say sadly, okay, Hemsworth is what he is, I think.
And we don't dislike Hemsworth.
No, we don't. But whatever happens to him in the future, it's fine. That's not necessarily how Jack created the character or wrote the character.
Look at this Kirby cover right here.
Silver Surfer. Silver Surfer on the cover of Fantastic Four number 72. One of the greatest covers of all time.
Beautiful.
Folks, it's got a red background, the Watcher's there. And it's that beautiful Kirby Surfer on the front there, just beautiful.
Yeah,
it's very abstract and pop art at Jack's lines.
No, absolutely. But really go back. You didn't forget your crossover, did you?
No, I was talking about everything that that he's done is you know, like, been outrageous and crazy and whatnot. It's nice to see the last great thing coming, which is the Eternals. So to sum it up, it's like it takes place in a lot of the Thor books, and obviously in its own book. And it's very cosmic.
It's it's going to tie in, you're thinking.
Yeah, I think it's going to tie everything together. It's kind of Ancient Aliens, you know, like the History Channel show. Yeah. It's got a little of that vibe going on. Remember, I mentioned this before, but in case if you didn't remember or you didn't hear it, you know, Jack grew up in the 60s, and not grew up in the 60s, but he was alive and he was vibrant in the 60s.
Yeah.
And he first came across, like, Eric von Däniken's Chariots of the Gods and all the sequels and all those things, when they first started to believe that there was things going on.
Books that would stimulate his mind?
Stimulated everybody's mind, but somebody who was overly stimulus open, like I can't think of the terminology. His stimuli was just
very receptive,
very vibrating.
Yeah.
It was prime fodder for the king. You know. Yeah. By the way, Jack Kirby's middle name is Jack King Kirby. By the way.
King Kirby.
Where Stan was called Stan the Man Lee.
Stan,
you know.
Man.
So you know he was the man. Jack was the king.
No
so it'd be nice to see it. So here we are. His stuff is still happening by the Disney version of the movies. You know, the Marvel Studios version.
His legacy reaches that far.
It does. Now, aside from what Fox did on the Fantastic Four, okay, there's moments they're okay. For the most part, they're not really that good. They don't really echo what Jack is really all about.
But we about to get that real FF.
Think about that.
Yes.
The MCU version of Kirby's Dream.
The high-level FF.
And
I got to shiver up my spine,
yeah, me too, just thinking about it. Because what has Marvel really done since about halfway through the last 10 years of the first 12 films, or whatever it was?
Teased that outer space life.
Teased the outer space stuff a lot, actually. You see it in Doctor Strange. You see it in the Guardians films. Obviously, Thanos, the big adversary. Yeah. It's all space.
But reading them, they all about space exploration.
Space. And the kids get born in outer space. And it's like,
my God.
And if you like crazy characters like, you know, like... And now, obviously,
thank you, Jack, for the FF.
Oh, no doubt about it. Wait till you see things like all the Psycho Man and Nihilus.
Wow, Nihilus. They don't even know the villains that's coming.
Oh, I know. And of course, you mentioned earlier, Dr. Victor Von Doom.
Victor Von Doom, a legendary villain. You like Joker?
Yeah.
You like Thanos? Wait till we get Doom, baby.
Yep.
I love Doom. He's so narcissistic.
Oh my
God.
He
refers to himself in the third person.
He does. He does it all the time.
Doom telling one of his Doom bots, Doom, pass Doom some wine.
Yeah.
So Doom can get boozed up.
The Doom bots. What a great creation, man.
Oh my
Always
God.
have a doppelganger out there to cover your ass.
Who's going to assassinate him? You never know if he's in the field.
So just think about, like, when they handle that character the correct way, that's going to be a whole new bunch of excitement in the Marvel MCU that people have not seen for a long time.
They're not going to miss a beat as far as maintaining, like, the current financial landscape of, like, hitting all these big movies.
They're going to be really close to following the same trail if they handle it right.
You know what it's going to become, especially because this is going to be still a lot of Jack's work. Almost every movie's going to gross $1 billion, like for real this time.
Well,
like
the first couple out of the gate got to do real well, or it won't. But I think they will.
Yeah.
Because they knew if they had actually kept the Avengers alive still, and they kept things like they were in 2008 or 2012, that they would have ran into a problem ultimately because of the fact that you can only take Cap so far and Thor so far.
Yeah.
So the way it worked out because of contracts and they couldn't stick around, this actually turned out to be a good thing.
It was already incorporated into the design of just the life of what had to happen.
They solidify the Fox deal.
Yeah.
And they get the rest of the King's stuff
time, baby.
Perfectly. With the massive quantity of villains and characters that he's created, I'd have to make a booklet on a giant teleprompter to tell us everything that we can talk about today.
I don't want to forget Galactus, though.
No, we can't. Done right.
Yeah, done right. Not a smoke monster. You know, even though I like some of the...
No, we're not getting that.
Yes, I like some of the episodes in that first iteration.
Well, the animated Surfer looked nice.
Yeah.
But it's going to be even better because the Surfer was like a robot. He didn't have no personality.
Yeah.
The Surfer was a human, you know.
Yeah, it's the same thing with the second iteration of the Fantastic Four with Michael B. Jordan and all that. They didn't even stick at all to the source material.
No, they didn't want to. So I know, Fox, for years before they sold everything, they were just jockeying for the big sale to Marvel anyway, so... They happen. Like, there's been other Spider-Man movies. There's been other films and stuff. They come, they go. We're taking it from this point out.
Yeah.
So,
but like you were saying about like the mass quantity of characters that Kirby has created, they don't even have time to get to all of them, right?
No, they really don't. But just wrapping up what we were saying about Captain America, that I want to just put on a good note before we wrap up this episode is Captain America was actually born and was released in 1941. So when the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor in December 7th, the most likely character to take up the mantle for fighting the bad guys was El Capitan America.
Wow, Captain America.
Right, created by
insane.
Jack. And Jack actually had, as we'll get into next episode, Jack got drafted. He was in World War II. He was in the Battle of the Bulge. He fought the Hun in the woods, and he lived to tell the story. which reflects upon the dynamics in his work. There's monsters, there's horrific things. Jack saw death. Jack saw concentration camps.
Yeah.
Real guttural. His approach to comics is really guttural. Anyway, so the character's born. He comes out on the cover. He's punching Hitler on the chin.
Yeah.
And this is
that's strong.
This
right
is a young Jack, right, doing this.
Yeah,
that's
strong.
Because they actually thought they weren't going to pull through that war. It was just too dangerous looking. And thankfully, obviously, the bad guys had a total madhouse running their game, you know, for them, and that's what caused their problems. And maybe we lost it. They had a smart leader. It'd be horrible.
So Kirby was a cartoonist. He started out a cartoonist before he got into comics, right?
He sure did. That was the time when the cartoonists, you know, newspaper strip artists,
yes,
and different type of cartooning, even animation.
Jack worked under the pseudonym Jack Curtis.
Yeah, isn't that neat?
Yeah.
He's got so many little games and names he played around with. You know, I think the Jewish fellows were actually a little nervous about having too many Steins in their name and stuff at the time.
Yeah.
It was because they were treated very racially, like black people and all the early immigrants.
Yeah, they had
over.
to struggle. They definitely had to struggle.
You know, the same way people have struggles today trying to get in our country. But this is not a new thing. I mean, the Poles, the Germans, and the Jewish, and the Russians, and whatever it might be, all tried to come to America at that time, and they were immigrants.
Yeah.
And they make our country what they are today. All these people and all those.
Yeah.
You know.
Jack's parents were from Austria. That's the same place Arnold Schwarzenegger's from.
Yeah, that's right.
I thought that was cool.
Yeah, so they were Jewish German.
Yeah, Jewish German. Yeah.
Like that's pretty wild. I mean, anyway, getting back to where we were. So Captain America is invented, and it's on the cover #1, and it influenced all the comics at that time.
I would
DC,
love that
Marvel, and everything. I know
more than Superman #1. I would love it. I'm a Cap fan.
I know. We've always
to my bones to the day that I die. Thank you, Chris Evans. My God. Thank you, Jack Kirby.
And you get a nod to other great writers
Kirby
out there that done comics.
Kirby head, whatever you want to call me.
Oh, yeah. Well,
Kirby crew. I'm with it.
The Kirby Crackle. How about the little dots and everything? The Kirby Crackle.
Yeah.
It's in the cosmic space. But a lot of the other people that were influenced by Cap, too, are prominently big people in the comics today. I mean, comics, their dynamic is all centered around what Jack did. You know?
Yeah, even his ancillary characters, the character that Captain America birthed, the Falcon, such a strong character, especially right now. Winter Soldier, such a complex character that they're probably going to delve into more in the show. The show, thank Jack again. We have the Falcon, and Winter Soldier show because of Jack Kirby.
Well, Jack's influence on those
his legacy
it's definitely his legacy to influence everybody from head to toe.
Because it's his legacy. That's what I meant. If there was any confusion, but his legacy. If there was no Captain America, you don't get these characters. You don't get that.
There's no Ed Brubaker in the Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
I mean, and
his run was my God. I remember coming here picking that up.
Oh, every week you came out, you were eating that up, man.
Yeah.
Remember how it started off originally? They thought the real Cap got killed in the first issue.
Dude, I gotta go back and read it. It was a good story. I gotta go back and read it.
So anyway, the war kind of wraps up. America's very patriotic, more than it's ever been at this time.
Yeah. And, you gotta rally that ethos. You gotta get the zeitgeist of the people ready to go to war.
And meanwhile, there's going to be hundreds of thousands of young soldiers that are going to be coming back from World War II, looking for some entertainment. Sadly, the superhero comic was written for a younger age audience at the time, so they sold a lot of comics. They had paper drives, made a lot of money for the war and everything. But when these soldiers came back, they weren't in the mood for the sillier type of superhero comics. And the better comics back then, there was less of them and more silly comics. And that's just inevitable in any business, especially in comics. So Jack and Joe Simon have to find different ways to determine what the next things they can do are that are going to be actually really popular for that generation of boys coming back from World War II that are between 25 and 30 years old. They've seen a lot of gritty shit. They've been in a very visceral situation.
Very visceral.
So that's when comics starts to change. And that's when you got more science fiction. Jack, as we know, loves science fiction.
Yeah.
So a lot of his stuff that became the Marvel stuff and even the later DC stuff all starts in the 50s.
Okay.
Everybody was influenced by rocket ship movies in the 50s, right?
Absolutely.
Not the
Impressions. Absolutely. You make me want to watch some rocket ship movies. But bringing up what, linking on to what you just said, DC.
Yeah.
New gods.
Which would have been the old gods.
Which would have been the old gods.
Because what did he say? He wanted to take the Thor characters from Asgard. He wanted to bring them down a level. And he wanted to actually add some new blood to the series. And a lot of people think that Jack was just trying to kill off Thor. We don't know. We've only heard rumors that maybe that was the plan. But it wasn't planned.
Yeah.
Because what he was trying to do, he was trying to rejuvenate the Thor line in the 60s.
They didn't let him do it?
No, they told him that Stan said that wasn't the way to go.
So he had to go to DC.
Well, he kept the ideas quiet for another couple years because he doesn't start the New Gods until the early 70s.
Yeah.
So he actually stays at Marvel for another couple years, setting up his coup d'etat of leaving, whatever you want to call it. Yeah. It's not really a coup d'etat, but his potential leaving at DC. He's writing new ideas. Yeah. He already pitched this to Stan in 1968.
And the New Gods got you Mr. Miracle, which is such a fantastic character.
You got the Fourth World and Apocalypse.
Yes.
So again, another world-building, imaginary story that he comes up with.
That Fourth World series, like I gotta somehow get that in my grasp. I heard it's amazing.
It's pretty impressive. One of the things that I'll mention, just so people don't think that I'm insane. Yes, there were some issues in some of the scripting and stuff, and some of the dialogue that was happening in the later runs of all the Fourth World stuff. But take in mind now, Jack needed to make as much money as he could for a young fellow that's got a family. They have multiple kids now. They're living in California, so they can't afford to have too many additional people working on certain projects. So the DC editors let him do his thing. Obviously, there was no Stan there to edit it or correct it. So some of those books can definitely, you can notice they suffer a little bit without a really solid editor. And it's kind of what, and a dialogue man, which is kind of what Lee did for him.
Yeah, is DC, like, they're doing a New Gods movie, right?
Oh, DC's been working on that for a couple of years. There's been a couple of failed attempts, but it looks like now it's going to come to fruition. They're real excited about that. It's got some exciting blood on directing and some scripting stuff. This is all going to be post Zack Snyder era, and obviously post Warner Brothers owning the company. So it's the influence of the AT&T Corporation. And I think they want to make as much money as they can on this line of stuff. They don't want to let this collect dust. What's the second most popular brand of properties that's in Hollywood right now?
DC.
DC. It's superheroes. I mean, sadly, when they finally come out, we could be slightly past the curve on this. So the director is, I believe,
Ava Duvernay.
Oh, she's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's a real hot commodity in Hollywood right now. They like her freshness and her approach. And I think, because she's a black lady, I think it might actually add some kind of a style to the film, which I think would be really nice, because the New Gods are sort of outcasts of the dark side.
I can see that.
Their father is dark side, but their mother is obviously from Apocalypse. She's like a human style, like the actual gods.
Just a crossover for a second. That director, that Ava, she did A Wrinkle in Time.
Oh, yeah.
She did Selma, and she did the Netflix special, When They See Us.
Okay, so she has a real good feel for causes and things.
Yeah, Ava's got something under her belt.
Even the New Gods themselves are all castaways who are trying to break away from their father and the evil planet that they live on called Apocalypse. So it'll be interesting the approach to see what DC goes with and make it cosmic. And we'll get, we'll get Orion and all these great characters and Mr. Miracle.
And DC's got to get it together. Jack gave you so many great characters to work with over there. It's definitely as far as like the expansive universe. DC, can we just get with the program? Jack left you the template, like we said in an earlier episode. These movies are already storyboarded. Kid, all you have to do is follow the script and deviate a little bit. Yeah, we good, baby.
Yeah,
we good.
Yeah, don't feel intimidated by the amount of volume that he gave you. You're gonna wish you had all this content as you're moving along.
Yes.
Don't shortchange it. Don't whittle it down to nothing. You got to have confidence in the product you're researching, and you stick to your guns.
Is a great product.
Whenever we finally see, Darkseid or wherever you're going with this, you got to get to it, and you have to stick with it. But so the 50s gets kind of weird for Jack,
Yeah.
He's doing a lot of science fiction. They started publishing some comics together, him and Joe. The comics had a little problem in the 50s because of the Senate investigations and the horror comics.
Yeah.
They suffered a little bit with all the stuff that wasn't done with the Comics Code Authority.
Yeah, they were getting tough on comics.
So Jack and Joe really had a hard time staying in business at that time. The partnership does split up.
Yeah, and it's hard to be creative when something like that's coming down on you.
Yeah, because you can't think about what you want to do. You're thinking about paying your damn
you think about the parameters you have to work in. And,
you're about getting bread on the table. Yeah, it's pretty damn crazy. But, eventually they split up. They go their different ways. And then this odd thing happened. In 1956, DC decides we're going to restart the superhero craze again. It kind of died out at the end of World War II, as I talked about, because it was a little more amateurish. It was more youthful.
Yeah, they wanted it more serious.
So because of the Senate investigations, all that cool developments in the 50s, like comics were getting more mature. They had a bit of a conscience.
Had to get sidelined.
They had to get sidelined a little bit. They had to bring it down to the superhero thing again. Well, it was the perfect alignment of stars and things, because there's a guy named Jack Kirby hanging around who can't find a job to pay his darn bills. He's living in New York City still, and things are changing in the comics. DC's going to bring back the Flash. This is 4 or 5 years before Fantastic Four #1 begins. So DC's able to start the JLA, Green Lantern.
That's crazy.
And revamp the superheroes. They'd all, revamped the Silver Age superheroes because the Golden Age guys had different costumes. They were called the Justice Society of America. They more or less tried to revamp their look, revamp their stories.
That Silver Age came through and changed everything. The
Flash, sure did.
The Flash is noted for starting that. I know that for a fact.
That's a good story, and it's Barry Allen.
Yeah,
the chemicals fall off the shelf and everything.
And
so anyway, Jack, he's in New York. He hasn't left. He's hustling. He's trying to find a job. He bumps into Stan Lee. He knew Stan Lee back in the days at the old Timely Company because Stan Lee was he was like the coffee boy for him and Joe Sinnott. Sorry, great anchor. Him and Joe Simon were like they were a little bit older. Stan Lee was a little 16, 18-year-old little coffee boy.
Like the intern.
All right, so finally he goes like,
bones.
Yeah, but he learned a lot. He learned how to write throughout the 50s, and he worked on a lot of funny comics, romance comics. But, he doesn't really get too crazy with it being competitive with what DC's doing. So Jack's got all these great ideas. He's been already working on these pre-Marvel monster characters. You know how they got like Groot and Fing Fang Foom and all those different monsters?
Yeah.
That's called the pre-hero Kirby era. They turn a lot of that monster stuff, as we mentioned, monsters and violence with Jack Kirby, into the next attack of things that they're going to release, this bombardment of Kirby creativity with Lee, and we get Spider-Man and Fantastic Four.
That's pretty cool.
Jack was involved in the early concepts of Spider-Man, but for the most part, he doesn't get all the credit on much of the massive development.
You told me that he drew the first cover?
We drew the first cover, and I believe Ditko inked it, if I'm not mistaken. But there was a Silver Spider, and there were some other Spider characters that were being developed a year or two before they actually create the Spider-Man. So Jack had a little say in that, which is fantastic, and I think that's great. He deserves a lot of...
Fantastic Four.
Fantastic Four is what he really is known for. So pairing up with Stan Lee, it all really comes together.
That's awesome.
And the beginning of the Marvel era, is about to be upon us. And where this all leads us to is where we are today in 2019 with the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Woo.
So where this goes from here in future episodes is going to be a lot of fun.
Thank you,
so
Jack.
I hope... Yes, thank you, Jack. I just hope that all you folks will be back for future episodes of the Weigh-In.
Like, comment, subscribe.
Yep, please do. We're here for you. Say something to us. Be our friend.
Henny boys.
Henny boys over and out. Or power down. Or chill out.
Deactivate.
Deactivate.
Henny boy number 1.
Number 2 here.
That's crazy.
Over and out.
That Jack episode was tough.